Adrianne Robert had no idea someone had been watching her that night. It seemed like a normal drive home would soon turn into a terrifying investigation filled with unanswered questions, disturbing evidence, and a mystery that shocked everyone. Adrianne Robert and what really happened after she arrived home. This is the horrifying case of Adrianne Robert. You're watching Old Casebook. 29-year-old Adrianne Robert was a graphic designer living in Clearwater, Florida. Known for her constant smile and infectious laugh, Adrianne loved being around people, going out, and enjoying life to the fullest. Her mother, Dolores, known to most as Lori, often described Adrianne graduated from university before starting work at the Sun Journal as a page designer. Wanting more opportunities and a bigger future, she eventually moved to Florida to continue building her career. Over the years, Adrianne worked her way through several high-level positions in event planning and marketing before deciding to launch her own company, Splatter Concepts Incorporated. At the time, she was living in a townhouse with her close friend and roommate, Jay. But life was beginning to change. Adrianne and her boyfriend, Justin, were preparing to move in together. Their relationship was becoming serious. He even told her father, Mark, he planned to propose to Adrianne on her upcoming 30th birthday. For Adrianne and Jay, it marked the end of one chapter and the exciting beginning of another. On July 13th, 2012, Adrianne was in a celebratory mood. She was scheduled to move out the next and the entire weekend ahead was going to. Earlier that evening, she mentioned that she and Jay might grab drinks at a couple of bars or possibly watch a movie. Justin told her it perfect, since he would be busy at the house organizing things for the move. After having a few drinks at their condo, Adrianne and Jay decided to walk to a place visited several times before, Diamond Dolls, strip club located just over a mile away from their home. The pair arrived at around 10:30 p.m. and after spending a few hours there, Adrianne decided she was ready to head home. Jay planned to stay a little longer, but Adrianne had reached the end of her night. They had both been drinking, and with such a busy day ahead of her, she decided it was time to leave. Calling, Adrianne chose to walk the mile back to the townhouse alone. Later, Jay finally returned home. As he entered the townhouse, he called out Adrianne's name, but there was no response. Her belongings were scattered around the house, most of them already packed and ready for the move. Silence inside felt strange and unsettling. As Jay made his way upstairs, he noticed the bathroom door was shut. When he pushed it open, he was met with a horrifying scene. Adrianne was lying on the floor, surrounded by blood. 911. Is this a police, fire, or medical emergency? Tell me what happened. I just came home. My roommate, she came home a while ago and she stopped moving. Okay, so she's completely unresponsive. She's got blood all over. Is she breathing? No, there's nothing. Can't see her breathing at all. There's nothing. Listen carefully. I need you to place the heel of your hand on the breastbone in the center of her chest. They followed every instruction the dispatcher gave him, desperately trying to save her. It was already too late. When paramedics arrived at the townhouse, Adrianne was pronounced dead at the scene. She was found wearing only her bra and had suffered a single stab wound to the chest. Her body was covered in bruises, and investigators immediately noticed signs indicating that a sexual assault had likely occurred. One detail stood out more than anything else. The bottoms of her feet were badly cut and bruised, almost as if she had been running barefoot outside shortly before her death. There were no signs of forced entry anywhere inside the townhouse. No broken locks, no shattered windows. Investigators believed most of the violent struggle occurred inside the bathroom and on the bed nearby. The toilet seat was broken and stained with blood, while blood spatter covered parts of the shower curtain and bathtub. As detectives carefully processed the crime scene, they discovered that a section of Adrianne's bedsheet, roughly 10 inches wide, had been deliberately cut out. Investigators to believe the killer had attempted to remove DNA evidence. Despite the effort, DNA was still recovered from Adrianne's body, and traces were also found on the mattress underneath the missing piece of fabric. Outside the bathroom, bloody fingerprints marked the walls and door. Detectives believed the attacker had left behind far more evidence than they realized. The scene itself was chaotic and frenzied. A brutal and desperate struggle had taken place inside the home. Investigators also noticed that Adrianne's car keys were missing from the hook downstairs. Officers checked outside for her orange Jeep. They realized the vehicle was gone as well. Immediately, the entire block was sealed off. It launched a major investigation. The dangerous killer was still free. Not long after, detectives made the devastating phone call to Adrianne's parents. When her mother, Laurie, answered, the detective asked, "Adrianne Roberts, your daughter?" She replied nervously, "Is she okay?" "No." Laurie's heart sank instantly. "Is she alive?" she asked, already fearing the answer. "No." The moment she heard that word, Laurie screamed and threw the phone against the wall. Adrianne's father, Mark, rushed into the room and picked up the call himself. Later, hearing those words from the detective like he had left his own body. As Adrianne's parents rushed toward Clearwater, Justin was preparing for moving day and driving toward the townhouse. When he arrived, he immediately noticed yellow crime scene tape surrounding the property, especially around Adrianne's empty parking spot. At first, Justin was simply confused. Maybe someone had stolen her Jeep, he thought. Seemed like terrible timing, but nothing more than that. He parked his car and walked toward one of the officers standing nearby. But within moments, what Justin believed was a stolen vehicle to the beginning of the worst nightmare of his. Detectives later interviewed a devastated Justin and quickly ruled him out as a suspect. Think of anyone who would want to hurt Adrianne at that stage of the investigation. Police believed the attack may have been carried out by a stranger, possibly someone from the club or someone who had followed her home that night. A short time later, Adrianne's orange Jeep was discovered abandoned a few blocks away in a mall parking lot. Surveillance footage captured someone parking the vehicle before walking away through the lot. Although the footage was dark and blurry, detectives finally had a timeline they could begin piecing together. As investigators interviewed residents nearby, witness reported seeing what he believed was Adrianne alongside a young black male late that night. She had been carrying her shoes in one hand and her bag in the other. At the time, witness thought it was strange to see someone jogging so late at night, but detectives no longer believed Adrianne had been out for a run. They believed she had been running for her life. Considering the condition of her feet when she was discovered in the bathroom, the theory seemed believable. Investigators believed she had run all the way home barefoot, badly injuring herself along the way. Detectives already knew the crime had taken place sometime after Adrianne left the strip club and before Jay returned home, leaving only a small window of time to investigate. That narrow timeline helped police focus the case much more quickly. Actually, both Jay and Justin were ruled out as suspects. Jay explained that the night had simply been meant as one final celebration before moving out, and he and his roommate had visited Diamond Dolls several times in the past. Surveillance footage backed up his statement, confirming they arrived exactly when he claimed they did. The club said they began talking with a man who had been drinking near the bar for quite a while. He described him as a young African-American male with a goatee, wearing a baseball cap that may have had the word Boston on it. According to Jay, the man was skinny, not very tall, someone neither of them had ever met before. Still, he appeared friendly and joined them for drinks near one of the stages. At some point later in the night, Adrianne decided to leave. Remembered the man immediately asking where she was going. Moments later, he quietly stood up and followed after her. Jay later recalled him saying something along the lines of before heading out behind her. Surveillance footage showed Adrianne walking out of the club at exactly 1:38 a.m. and only seconds later, the man exited carrying something in his hand. Investigators later realized it was the sweater Adrianne had accidentally left behind on her chair outside the club. The two spoke briefly before walking away together in the direction of Adrianne's home. As detectives dug deeper, they discovered the man had arrived at Diamond Dolls by taxi and had been drinking ever since he got there. taxi company provided investigators with the phone number used to book the ride, and that same number had already appeared in a previous suspicious person report filed by the Clearwater Police Department. The number was linked to Thomas Frederick. What stood out immediately was the fact that Thomas had no serious criminal history for a murder this brutal. That was unusual, and because of that, there was no DNA sample on file for comparison. Detectives decided to place him under surveillance. Next 2 weeks, wherever Thomas went, investigators followed closely behind, waiting for the smallest opportunity to collect something they could test for DNA. That opportunity tossed a cigarette out of a car window. Detectives knew this was the break they'd been waiting for. Time was running out, and investigators feared he could leave the city or even the state at any moment. They urgently requested the lab rush the testing process and treat it as a top priority. Not long after, the results confirmed exactly what detectives already suspected. Thomas Frederick was Adrianne's killer. After being arrested for murder, Thomas appeared surprisingly calm, almost talkative. Investigators showed him a photo of Adrianne, and he casually admitted he remembered meeting her at Diamond Dolls. According to him, they drank together, danced at the club. Afterward, he simply went to work the next morning like nothing unusual had happened to him. It was just another normal Friday night. Thomas told investigators, "She bought me drinks. We danced at the club, met a friend, had some more drinks, and I went to work." "And you ended up going to work after being out all night?" "I do all the time," Thomas replied. Detectives continued pressing. "You saw her at the club. There was some interaction. You bought drinks. And then you left. Did you stay there until Diamond Dolls closed?" Thomas answered vaguely, saying, "Diamond Dolls closed, or probably before, depending on if I needed cigarettes or not." Investigators then showed him the surveillance footage of himself following Adrianne while carrying her sweater. After watching the tape, Thomas claimed they reached the end of the road and went separate ways, and insisted he did not remember following her until he saw the footage himself. "You ever been to her house?" investigators asked. Thomas gave another uncertain answer. "Well, if I did, then I don't remember. But you do remember walking her to the corner because you realized you had a sweater. It's the only reason I got up. Otherwise, I'd still have been sitting there." "I understand that," investigators replied. "Have you ever been to her house?" "If I did, I really don't remember. I told you, when I drank, I drank. She went one direction. You went another, and you never saw her again." "I have not seen her since that night. Since she split at that intersection, I have not seen her again. Period." At first, that was Thomas's story, but later he changed. Adrianne had asked him to walk her home. Detectives also questioned why both of them were seen running. Thomas explained that she suddenly wanted to run, and he simply followed behind her. He insisted he was not chasing her, only keeping up with her pace. Was when detectives introduced the DNA evidence. Faced with the results, Thomas admitted that after arriving at her house, Adrianne became sick and threw up. The two then had consensual sex. According to him, everything changed afterward. He claimed she grabbed a knife from the bathroom and swinging it at him. Thomas said he tried to defend himself, managed to take the knife away, and during the struggle, she was fatally stabbed. Detectives did not believe his version of events. He was charged with first-degree murder and grand theft auto. Thomas told investigators where they could find the knife and the missing piece of her bedsheet. Pinellas County Sheriff Bob Gualtieri stated, "Got a real bad guy off the street. This is the most dangerous kind of crime because he was willing to take somebody he didn't know and rape and kill her." The arrest came on Adrianne's parents' wedding anniversary. Mark's sister later said, "Today is their 25th wedding anniversary. I think my brother said this is the best gift they could have received." What investigators believed had happened, Thomas was never charged with rape due to a lack of physical evidence. However, prosecutors would still present that theory during the trial. In January 2014, after pleading not guilty, Thomas went on trial. Defense argued that Adrianne's death was the result of self-defense. They claimed she was taller and physically larger than him, and his attorney described Thomas as young, immature, frightened, and defensive. But prosecutors painted a very different picture. They believed that the moment Thomas saw Adrianne leaving the club, had already decided what he wanted to do. According to the prosecutor, home and eventually chased her as she ran barefoot through the streets. They argued that once inside the condo, Adrianne may have tried to remain polite, allowing him in, perhaps thinking he only needed water. Instead, prosecutors claimed Thomas pulled out a knife, sexually assaulted her on the bed, then forced her into the bathroom where he stabbed her in the chest. The state argued that the bruises on Adrianne's arms did not match Thomas's. None of her injuries were consistent with the struggle in self-defense. Prosecutors described the scene as an attack on a vulnerable woman who had been pinned down and assaulted. A consensual encounter that turned violent. Reports suggested Adrianne had been vomiting because she drank too much alcohol, though it was never fully confirmed whether she became sick at the condo. Thomas himself claimed she became ill at the house. Prosecutors used this detail to argue that she would not have been physically capable of attacking him the way he described. To them, she was intoxicated, vulnerable, and clearly at a disadvantage. Overall, the prosecution appeared to have an extremely strong case. After the 4-day trial came to an end, the jury needed less than 2 hours to reach a verdict. Thomas was found guilty of first-degree murder and grand theft auto. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Believed that without the surveillance footage from the club, Thomas may have escaped justice for years. His DNA was not in any system at the time, and without investigators tracing him through the cab company and the cameras outside Diamond Dolls, he may never have been identified at all. Justin's life was shattered that day in July 2012. Every future plan he had imagined disappeared in an instant. After years of struggling to move forward, he eventually found love again with a woman named Amy, someone he had actually known as a child nearly 30 years earlier. And when I met Adrianne, I felt like, wow, this is who I was supposed to meet. Justin also remembered arriving at Adrianne Robert's Clearwater apartment van in July 2012. Instead of seeing her warm smile, he was greeted by detectives and crime scene team. I'm kind of like, how could this happen? This isn't real. Her killer was caught. Justin found it difficult to heal. Heartbroken, he later moved to Orlando, while his mother, Debbie, continued praying that one day he would find happiness again. He would pray every night for me to find someone that would make me happy. Debbie even kept a photograph of Justin's first love, and decades later, that connection unexpectedly returned when Amy and Justin reunited at a restaurant for the first time in years. Both Amy and Justin believe Adrianne somehow played a role in bringing them back together. Everybody knew she wouldn't want me to be sad and by myself forever. You don't find love, it finds you, and it has to do with destiny. It's a twist of fate, decades in the making. Adrianne's mother later said still holds onto her iPad as it is the only place where she can watch old videos and hear her daughter's voice again. She eventually wrote a heartfelt tribute that read, in part, "Your smile will forever shine brightly in all of us. Pleasure of knowing you, loving you, and holding you close. I was so proud of you. Things happen in your life, and standing firm in your beliefs. All of your artistic talent, keep painting the sky with beauty and rainbows. I will always be watching." The case of Adrianne Robert still leaves many disturbing questions unanswered. If you enjoyed this documentary, subscribe to Old Casebook for more true crime story, unsolved mystery. Thanks for watching.